In 1878, a mysterious marble tablet surfaced from a private collection. Nobody knows who found it. Nobody knows exactly where it came from. But what was carved into this stone sent shockwaves through the scientific community, because this tablet contains a direct order from a Roman emperor, an order that was issued right after Jesus was crucified. And this order makes absolutely no sense, unless one thing actually happened, unless Jesus Christ truly rose from the dead. For nearly 2,000 years, skeptics have demanded physical proof of the resurrection. They said faith wasn't enough. They wanted evidence they could touch, evidence they could test. Well, now we have it. And what this ancient stone reveals is something that the Roman Empire desperately tried to hide. But they failed. And today, the truth finally comes out. Now, to understand why this tablet is so important, we need to go back in time. Back to when Rome ruled the world. Back to the 1st century. The Roman Empire was massive. They controlled everything. They had laws for everything. And one of those laws was about grave robbing. See, back in those days, when rich people died, their families would bury them with valuable things: gold rings, expensive jewelry, fine clothing. And some people figured out they could dig up these graves and steal all that treasure, so Rome made a law against it. Simple enough, right? But here's what's interesting. The punishment for grave robbing wasn't that serious. If you got caught stealing from a grave, you just paid a fine. That was it. You handed over some money and walked away. No prison, no execution, just a fine. This was the law for years, decades, maybe even centuries. Grave robbing equals a fine, nothing more. But then something happened. Something so big that the emperor himself had to get involved. Something so troubling that Rome changed their entire approach to grave robbing overnight. And this change happened at a very specific time, in a very specific place. The time, right around 40 AD. Just a few years after Jesus was crucified. The place, Israel, specifically the regions of Nazareth and Galilee. Now think about that for a moment. Rome controlled millions of people across dozens of countries. They had a million problems to worry about. But suddenly, the emperor is focused on graves in one tiny region of Israel. Why? What happened there that demanded his personal attention? The answer to that question changes everything. And it's written right on that marble tablet. So let's talk about this tablet. It's called the Nazareth inscription, and the story of how we got it is almost as mysterious as what it says. Back in 1878, a man named Wilhelm Freuner had a collection of ancient artifacts. He was a collector. He had all kinds of old things from different parts of the world, and among his collection was this marble tablet. Now, here's the strange part. Nobody knows how he got it. Nobody knows who dug it up. Nobody knows exactly where it was found. The only clue was a small handwritten note attached to the tablet, and that note said something very specific. It said the tablet was sent from Nazareth. Nazareth, the hometown of Jesus Christ. For years, this tablet just sat in that collection. People didn't really understand what they had, but eventually, scholars started to take a closer look. And when they read what was carved into that stone, they couldn't believe it. The tablet contained a decree, an official order from the Roman emperor. And this order said some things that had never been said before in Roman law. It said that anyone caught stealing a body from a tomb would be put to death. Not fined, not imprisoned, death. Now, let that sink in for a moment. For years, grave robbers just paid fines. But suddenly, if you touched a dead body, you could be executed. But wait, it gets even stranger. The decree didn't just say stealing from graves was punishable by death. It specifically mentioned stealing bodies. Not the gold, not the jewelry, not the valuable items buried with the dead, just the bodies. Who steals a dead body? Think about it. Grave robbers want treasure. They want things they can sell. Oh, nobody is breaking into tombs just to take a corpse. So why would Rome suddenly make a law about stealing bodies? Unless someone had already done it. Unless a body had already gone missing, and unless that missing body was causing the empire serious problems. Now, let's connect the dots here. Because once you see the full picture, you'll understand why this tablet matters so much. The inscription on this tablet dates back to the reign of Emperor Claudius. Historians place it around 41 to 54 AD. That's just 10 to 20 years after Jesus was crucified. And the decree was specifically sent to Israel, not to Rome, not to Greece, not to Egypt. Israel. Now ask yourself this question. Why would the most powerful ruler in the world care about graves in Israel? Rome had an empire to run. They had wars to fight. They had millions of subjects to control. But the emperor took time out of his day to write a special law about dead bodies in one tiny province. The answer is simple. Something happened in Israel that shook Rome to its core. And we know exactly what that was. Jesus Christ was crucified. He was buried in a tomb. A large stone was rolled in front of it. Roman soldiers were posted to guard it. Everything was sealed up tight. And then the body disappeared. Within days, people started saying Jesus had risen from the dead. His followers were telling everyone. The story spread from Jerusalem to Judea to Galilee. And it didn't stop there. Within just a few years, the message reached Rome itself. People were converting to this new faith by the thousands. They believed Jesus was the Messiah. They believed he had conquered death itself. And this terrified the Roman authorities. Because if Jesus really rose from the dead, then everything Rome stood for was wrong. Their gods were false. Their power was temporary. Their empire would crumble. So Rome did what Rome always did. They tried to control the narrative. They said the disciples stole the body. They said it was all a trick. They said there was no resurrection. But the story kept spreading anyway. More and more people believed. The movement grew stronger every day. So the emperor made a decision. He issued this decree. He made body stealing a capital offense. He specifically targeted the region where Jesus had lived and died. And now we have the proof, carved right into stone. A direct response to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But there's something else about this tablet that scientists still can't explain. When researchers got their hands on this tablet, they wanted to know everything about it. Where did the stone come from? How old was it? Was it genuine or a fake? So they sent it to the laboratory. They ran tests. They examined the material. They analyzed every detail. And what they found raised even more questions. First, the dating. Scientists confirmed the tablet was carved sometime between 50 BC and 50 AD. That puts it right in the time period when Jesus lived. Right when the resurrection would have occurred. Right when Rome would have been scrambling to respond. So the timing checks out. This isn't some medieval forgery. This is a genuine artifact from the 1st century. But then came the strange part. The marble itself didn't come from Israel. It didn't come from anywhere near the Middle East. Here, when scientists analyzed the stone, they traced it to a Greek island called Kos. That's hundreds of miles away from Nazareth, across the Mediterranean Sea, in a completely different part of the empire. Why would a decree meant for Israel be carved on stone from Greece? Some researchers think the emperor wanted to use special material. Maybe marble from Kos was considered high quality. Maybe it was meant to show the importance of this decree. Others say we just don't know. The origins remain a mystery. But here's what we do know. Whoever created this tablet went to great lengths. They used expensive material from far away. They carved an official imperial decree. They sent it specifically to Nazareth and the surrounding region. This wasn't some local decision made by a minor official. This came from the top. This came from the emperor himself. And there's another mystery we haven't solved. We still don't know who originally found this tablet. We don't know exactly where it was buried. The collector who had it left almost no information. It's like someone wanted this evidence to stay hidden. Like someone tried to bury the truth along with the stone. But after 2,000 years, the truth has finally surfaced. And what it reveals next connects directly to Scripture. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Because what's written on this tablet lines up perfectly with what the Bible says happened. Open your Bible to Matthew chapter 28, verses 11 through 15. Go ahead and read it sometime. Because what it describes is exactly what we see in this Roman decree. The passage tells us that after Jesus rose from the dead, the guards who were watching the tomb went to the chief priests. They told them what happened. The stone had moved. The tomb was empty. The body was gone. And what did the chief priests do? They paid the soldiers money. They told them to spread a lie. They said the disciples came at night and stole the body while the guards were sleeping. That was the official story. That was the cover-up. The disciples stole the body. Now think about that Roman decree again. It specifically outlaws stealing bodies from tombs. Not valuables, bodies. The timing matches, the location matches, the specific concern about body theft matches. Rome was responding to exactly what the Bible describes. They were trying to prevent anyone else from claiming a resurrection. Or they were trying to stop the spread of Christianity by making body theft punishable by death. But there's another detail on the tablet that's even more convincing. The decree mentions a specific type of tomb. It describes graves that are sealed with large stones, stones that can be rolled away. Now, that's not how Romans buried their dead. Romans typically cremated bodies or buried them underground. But Jews used a different method. They placed bodies in caves carved into rock, and they sealed those caves with massive round stones that rolled in a groove, exactly like the tomb where Jesus was buried, exactly like the tomb described in the Gospels. This Roman decree wasn't talking about Roman graves. It was specifically addressing Jewish burial practices, the very practices used when Jesus was laid to rest. Now, some people might say this is all just coincidence. They might say we're reading too much into an old stone. But that's where science comes in. When archaeologists and historians examined this tablet, they didn't just look at what it said. They tested everything. They wanted to know if this artifact was genuine. And the results were clear. The style of writing on the tablet matches other Roman inscriptions from the 1st century. The language used is consistent with imperial decrees from that era. The way the letters were carved follows patterns we see in authentic Roman documents. In other words, this isn't a fake. This isn't something someone made up hundreds of years later. This is a real decree from a real emperor from the exact time period when Jesus walked the earth. The laboratory confirmed the age of the stone, between 50 BC and 50 AD. That's not a guess. That's based on scientific analysis of the material itself. Think about what that means. We have physical evidence from the 1st century that directly responds to claims about the resurrection. Skeptics have always demanded proof. They said faith wasn't enough. They wanted something tangible, something they could test in a lab, something that didn't come from the Bible. Well, this tablet doesn't come from the Bible. It comes from Rome. It comes from the people who were trying to disprove the resurrection. It comes from the very empire that crucified Jesus. And yet, this tablet confirms exactly what Christians have believed for 2,000 years. Something happened in that tomb. Something Rome couldn't explain. Something that forced the emperor to change the law. Modern technology has verified this artifact is authentic. Modern science has dated it to the right time period. But there are still people who don't want to believe. Let's talk about what they say. Now, of course, not everyone accepts this evidence. Some skeptics have tried to explain it away. Let's look at their arguments. Some say the decree was about general grave robbing. They say it had nothing to do with Jesus. But that doesn't make sense. Why would Rome suddenly make grave robbing a death penalty offense? They never did that before. And why specifically in Israel? Why specifically about bodies? Others point to the mystery of the tablet's origins. They say we don't know exactly where it was found. That's true, we don't. But does that change what's written on it? Does that change the laboratory results confirming its age? The tablet is genuine. The message is clear. The timing is exact. Whether we know who dug it up or not doesn't change those facts. Some skeptics say the marble coming from Greece proves it's not authentic. But that argument falls apart quickly. Rome imported materials from all over the empire. Using Greek marble for an important decree would have been normal. Here's what skeptics can't explain. They can't explain why Rome suddenly cared about body theft. They can't explain why this law was sent specifically to Nazareth. They can't explain why the decree mentions Jewish burial practices. Every objection has an answer, but the tablet itself remains. The evidence is still there. The truth is carved in stone. For 2,000 years, people have tried to disprove the resurrection. They've tried to explain it away. They've called it a legend that grew over time. But this tablet was created within just 15 years of the crucifixion. That's not enough time for legends to develop. The Roman Empire was responding to something real. So what does all this mean? What does this tablet tell us about our faith? It tells us that the resurrection wasn't a myth invented centuries later. It was a real event that happened in real time. An event so powerful that the Roman Empire had to respond. Think about that. The most powerful government in the ancient world took official action because of what happened in that tomb. They were scared. They were worried. They changed their laws because of Jesus Christ. For those of us who believe, this is confirmation. This is proof that our faith stands on solid ground. We're not believing in fairy tales. Oh, we're not following made-up stories. We have evidence, real, physical, testable evidence. And for those who don't believe, this is a challenge. How do you explain this tablet? How do you explain Rome's reaction? Why would an emperor care about one empty tomb unless something truly extraordinary happened there? Some religions say Jesus never rose from the dead. Some even say he was never crucified. But history says otherwise. Archaeology says otherwise. This tablet says otherwise. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is the foundation of the Christian faith. Without it, everything falls apart. The Apostle Paul said, if Christ has not been raised, our faith is worthless. But Christ has been raised. And now we have one more piece of evidence to prove it. This tablet sat hidden for nearly 2,000 years. But God's timing is perfect. When, in an age of doubt and skepticism, this evidence has surfaced just when people need it most. Our faith is not blind. Our faith is not foolish. Our faith is built on truth. Truth that even Rome couldn't bury forever. But there's one more thing you need to know about this discovery. This tablet is just one artifact, one piece of evidence among many. And that's what makes this so incredible. Because the Nazareth inscription isn't the only thing archaeologists have found. There are other discoveries, other tablets, other inscriptions that point to the same truth. Some of them are sitting in museums right now. Others are still buried in the ground, waiting to be discovered. Every year, researchers find something new. Every year, the evidence grows stronger. But here's what really gets me. This tablet was found by accident. It sat in a private collection for decades before anyone realized what it was. What else is out there that we haven't found yet? What other proof is waiting to be uncovered? And consider this. If Rome went to such extreme lengths to cover up the resurrection, what else did they hide? What other decrees were issued? What other evidence exists that we simply haven't discovered? The Roman Empire kept detailed records. They documented everything. Somewhere out there, there might be even more proof, direct references to Jesus, official reports about the empty tomb, maybe even testimony from the soldiers who guarded it. We found one tablet, just one, and look what it revealed. Imagine what else is waiting. The ground beneath Israel has kept secrets for 2,000 years. But those secrets are starting to surface, one discovery at a time, and one artifact at a time. And the next one could change everything we thought we knew about that first Easter morning.